What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and last week we actually got an official trailer for a new Batman game set in the Arkham universe. And if you watched my past videos, especially the Suicide Squad review, you know I'm a big fan of the Batman Arkham games. And maybe you could tell by the tone of my voice or the simple fact that I'm not doing that Jonah Hill excited gif thing, but there was a catch with this trailer. I've obviously watched the trailer and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. And if we're being fair, we did technically get a game earlier this year that featured Batman that was set in the Arkham universe, but I think it barely counts. Yes, it was developed by Rocksteady. It was a AAA game developed by Rocksteady, the studio that made the Arkham games. Batman was once again voiced by the late, great Kevin Conroy, as he's done for years with that character. But the game that I'm referring to is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And if you've watched my review of that game, or you just simply played it yourself, you know why I say that it barely counts that it was technically in the Arkham universe. For first off, it's not even set in Gotham, for God's sake. So you can't play that game and be like, yep, that's an Arkham game. And right off the rip, I have to make it very clear that if you, like myself, were a big fan of the Batman Arkham games, and you were hoping that since it was set in the same universe, that Kill the Justice League would have the same DNA as those games, I have to report, unfortunately, you're going to be very disappointed. Because despite technically being in the same universe, there's really no connective tissue. Yes, there are occasional references to the Arkham games. There's a kind of Batman museum that you'll walk through early on in this game that has statues that you can interact with that will kind of recap the events of the Arkham games. There's also Riddler trophies, and there's a boss battle at the end of the game that's very similar to a Scarecrow fight. And I know I listed a few things, but those things make up a very tiny percentage of this game overall. You could honestly take like 3 to 5% out of Kill the Justice League, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that it was in the same universe as the Arkham games. So even though I did think that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did have its moments where it was pretty fun, yeah, of course, myself, like many others, complained about the live service stuff that was kind of forced down our throats with that game. Superhero games and live service stuff don't really mix all that well. But if you take that stuff out of consideration, it was still a pretty fun game. I thought it was really funny. But if you're looking at it through the lens of, is this an Arkham game? It's a huge disappointment. It doesn't have the same feel. You barely see any of the characters that are from the Arkham games. Yes, Batman is involved, but it's a completely different character, even though it is voiced by the late, great Kevin Conroy. So when I did hear the news initially that we were getting a brand new Batman Arkham game, Arkham is literally in the title of the game, Batman Arkham Shadow, I was super psyched, but then I watched the trailer. So the trailer is very short, so we don't actually see much. It does appear that you play as Batman in Arkham Shadow, so it already has a leg up on games like Gotham Knights or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. However, if you do have a fear of rats, it's best if you look away, maybe skip ahead a little bit in the video, because there's a shit ton of rats in this trailer. The way that their eyes glow does kind of remind me of the Scarecrow serum in Batman Begins, so that's pretty cool. And all that being said, this might actually be the first time that you're hearing about this brand new Batman Arkham game, which you would think a new entry in the most successful superhero video game franchise of all time would be getting a lot more publicity. But as you saw in the trailer, not only is this only a VR game, but it's also exclusive to the MetaQuest 3. And we're gonna ignore the $500 MetaQuest 3 part of the equation for a second, but we'll get back to it. Arkham Shadow is actually not the first time the Arkham series has done VR. Rocksteady actually made a Batman VR game in 2016, aptly named Batman Arkham VR. I never played it myself. Outside of doing some cool VR experiences while in Vegas, I actually don't get into VR. However, Arkham VR does have some decent reviews, especially for VR in 2016. So that game didn't really piss me off like the announcement for Arkham Shadow did. Arkham VR came out when we were still getting great Arkham games for consoles. We had literally just gotten Arkham Knight a year earlier. Those days seem to be long gone. We haven't gotten a really good Batman Arkham game for a long time now. To make matters worse, this new game, Arkham Shadow, isn't even being developed by Rocksteady like Arkham VR was. Apparently, Rocksteady is too busy making Joker for Suicide Squad, only if you ordered him from Wish.com. Arkham Shadow, therefore, is being developed by a different studio named Camouflage. They spell camouflage kind of douchey, but that's beside the point. This studio actually made the Iron Man VR game. So not only is this not their first VR game, but it's also not their first superhero VR game. So if you are into VR, maybe this studio gets you a bit more excited for Arkham Shadow? Maybe. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm just not a huge fan of VR in general. Yes, it can be fun at times in small doses. My wife and I really had a good time going to a VR spot in Vegas called The Void. I have family that live in that area, so when we would go to visit, we'd always try to hit up The Void, and that was always really fun. We'd always kind of see if they had any new experiences that we haven't done before. There was this really awesome Star Wars one that I really enjoyed. There was also an Avengers one that we did that was a little less fun, but it was still pretty awesome. And the reason I liked The Void so much was the barrier to entry was a lot lower than a VR headset would be. You would, of course, have to pay for the experience, and that was a bit expensive, but you got your experience, you had your fun, and then you go home and kind of continue living your life. You didn't have this really expensive headset that you had to buy and buy games for and all that stuff. It was kind of one and done, and if you wanted to go back, that was great, but the barrier to entry was a lot lower versus a game like Batman Arkham Shadow, where you have to get a VR headset to play it. But on the other hand, if you actually want to play Arkham Shadow, not only do you have to have VR hardware, which is a growing market, but it's still a very niche market. Not only do you have to have that hardware, but Arkham Shadow is actually exclusive to the Meta Quest 3, which shrinks the market for this game even more. I have my own personal issues with Facebook and Meta in general, so even if I was into VR, which of course I'm not, this headset wouldn't even be the one I chose. However, if I didn't have those personal issues with the company making the headset, the price tag of the Meta Quest 3 would immediately have me running for the hills anyways. Right now, you can get the 128 gig Meta Quest 3 base model on Amazon for a little less than $500, which is already crazy money for a VR headset. However, if you want to upgrade to the 512 gigabyte model, you'll have to pay well over $600. Now, it does appear it's going for a bit less used on eBay, so you can go that route if you really wanted to play this game, but still you're going to pay several $100s to get basically the base model of the Meta Quest 3. Ultimately, I just don't understand why WB Games hates Arkham fans as much as they do. Since Arkham Knight came out in 2015, we have gotten the aforementioned Arkham VR. We've also gotten Gotham Knights, which wasn't even set in the Arkham universe. I'm not spoiling anything because I think this happens within like the first 20 minutes of Gotham Knights, but you literally see that Batman dies. So obviously it's not part of the Arkham universe. Even if it was, it still wouldn't feel like an Arkham game because there's not Batman in that game. And then of course, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which I've already talked about at the beginning of this video. Of course, we did get some cool Batman Telltale games. Those games games are cool. I mean, obviously a way different style than the Arkham games. It's a completely different Batman, but those games are fun for what they are. There was also an Injustice 2 game, which I'm a huge fan of NetherRealm Studios. I'm a big Mortal Kombat fan, so I like those games a lot, but obviously that's also a completely different universe and a completely different Batman. And then of course we got some Lego Batman games as well, which again, those are fun, kind of like the Telltale games. They're fun for what they are, but they're not Batman Arkham games. Nothing really compares to that full Batman Arkham experience. So to finally fully commit to giving us another Batman Arkham game, but then to only make it VR, and then to even make matters worse by limiting it exclusively to MetaQuest 3, it's just another slap in the face to Arkham fans like myself. But as always, those are just my thoughts on Batman Arkham Shadow. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Let me know if I'm just completely missing the boat on this VR thing. I've never really been all that interested in it. I know it's a growing market, and it's probably just me being like an old man and kind of pushing against new technology. I consider myself a pretty techie person. Just VR is just not one of those things that I've really ever gotten into outside of, again, the void. But if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related content, so if you like that type of content, which obviously you do because you're still listening to this video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?